How's it going, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to draw out the basic fundamentals of strength and conditioning for combat sport athletes, okay? This is a evidence-based approach. This is based on the greatest science in the field and what all of the most successful strength and conditioning coaches that actually take athletes and make them better with their strength programs. This is the most effective approach. This is what the science says. This is what the experts in the field do, okay? So, number one, get the bulk of your endurance, fight cardio / conditioning from your actual sport practice, okay? Conditioning is specific to the task at hand. I'm sure y'all have heard so many times of like stories of marathon runners or CrossFit athletes who come into Juijitsu, for example, and they don't last 3 minutes with another white belt or something without gassing out or something, right? It is true that like marathon running or CrossFit, if you have a base of athleticism and you're really good at those things, it can contribute towards your success later on, but at a baseline level, even with technique equated, conditioning needs to be specific to the task at hand, okay? And so how do you get specific conditioning for your sport of Jiu-Jitsu or Muay Thai or whatever, okay? So there's multiple forms of conditioning, okay? At the baseline background level, the foundation of conditioning, you have aerobic capacity or work capacity. This is the energy system in the background, that slow burning energy system that is responsible for long duration of work output. So this means, your ability to sustain a 3-hour jiu-jitsu practice or 3 hours of MMA drilling and technique work or whatever. Or even like going to a competition and, you're kind of just like competing with like rounds in between of rest. If it lasts an hour, your ability to recover from every round of intense competition, every match in your competition, that is reliant upon your aerobic capacity. So it's like your ability to recover in between rounds, your ability to sustain work for a long duration, okay? So that can be trained by running for, an hour or 3 hours at a time, like marathon running. That's slow, steady state cardio. But for fighters, you get aerobic capacity. You get this work capacity adaptation we're talking about from just going to practice and drilling every day. So if you want more aerobic capacity, you should do more drilling. You should do more technique work, okay? You could also just go for a long walk, okay? You can have a more physically demanding job. Aerobic capacity is not something that you need to worry too much about as long as you do a lot of training, whether it's light, especially light training throughout the week. So the foundation of your strength and conditioning, just like the foundation of your actual martial arts practice, needs to be lots and lots of drilling. A high volume of drilling, a high frequency of drilling every single day, okay? You don't need to be running for long periods, okay? Even though that's not bad. Okay, and before we go on, MMA athletes, combat sport athletes, jiu-jitsu athletes, Muay Thai fighters, you only have a certain amount of recovery capacity, okay? You only have a certain amount of time in a day. You need to make sure that whatever you do is the biggest bang for your buck that you can do every single day, okay? If you already get aerobic capacity adaptations from your sport training, you don't need to be going and running because there's a million better things you can do that will benefit your sport way more than fucking running, okay? Again, not saying running's bad. I'm just saying, like, if your athletes are going in and doing a hard MMA practice 3 times a week with wrestling sessions in between, they are going to have, like, you're already going to have trouble recovering from that a lot of times. Or that's already enough, basically. You don't need to be fucking going and running, okay? So rant over. So that's aerobic capacity, okay? You can also get aerobic capacity from flow rolling, from tag sparring, light sparring of all kinds, grappling, striking, is an amazing way of building your aerobic base, okay? Think about Max Holloway. So I'm actually training a fighter who trained at his gym in Hawaii. And he said all that they did throughout the development of Max Holloway's career was a lot of light sparring. And so that's why if you notice Max Holloway, his technique is on point because he does a shit ton of light sparring. His cardio is on point. That motherfucker can just keep punching, keep coming at you the whole time. He doesn't gas out. He has the highest volume of accurate strikes, I believe, in his division. Why is that? Probably because he does a lot of light sparring. And make no mistake, hard sparring is important too, but we're talking a basic foundation. That is the best way to build your gas tank for fighting, okay? Lots of flow rolling, lots of technique sparring, okay? And then hard sparring interspersed, but less so. Like maybe twice a week, maybe. Once or twice a week. With jiu-jitsu, you could do it more often. So that's aerobic capacity, and that's also your baseline level of technique, vitally important. This should form the baseline level of everything. Lots of drilling and lots of flow sparring, okay? So then, the next part to that, okay, and if you're going to spend an hour fucking running, how about you spend an hour having fun sparring with your friends or with your teammates? Like, go to the park and do flow sparring, okay? I mean, does that sound so irrational? I think people are just scared to do light sparring because they're like, oh no, I'll build bad habits. You'll build bad habits is if you do nothing but hard sparring all the time. Because you're always afraid of getting knocked out, or you're afraid, you're trying to win all the time, trying to prevent someone from passing your guard. You're not able to have that opportunity to train that fancy rocket science technique coach was drilling with you earlier in the week, right? Flow sparring is a perfect way to do those new techniques. You'll start to see a lot more openings the more and more you do it. You'll start to see techniques you never saw before when you're going hard all the time. Okay? And I always see white belts who just don't get better after years. And sometimes get promoted to blue belts. And all they do is just try really, really hard when they roll. And the only reason they might submit people or win is because they try really hard. And these are the people that crank things that aren't actually submissions and whatever. But their technique never gets better because all they ever do is go 100% all of the time. So, yeah, I mean, and then they start doing more flow sparring and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, their guard passes look better and are better. And they get sweep less because they're not just relying on effort all the time, right? You see people who do nothing but hard striking, and their head movement sucks because they're never able to train that in a controlled environment when they're closing the gap. So anyway, that should be number one. Vitally important. I think this is the number one thing everyone should be doing. So then beyond that, we have anaerobic capacity and anaerobic power. So we're talking, lactic capacity and lactic power. So the lactic system, so you want to think wrestling scrambles, you want to think lots of grappling against the cage, you want to think, when you're on the bottom of full mount, and I think they call it honey badgering, but you're trying really hard fighting to get out of full mount position, right? Get out of being mounted. What else? Clinching, pummeling, stuff like that. That's your lactic capacity system. And also just really hard jiu-jitsu rounds, right? When you're really trying to go for a submission or whatever, you're really trying to fight for a position, you're really trying to win, right? So we're not talking stalling positions, right? When you say, oh, I'm really effective at jiu-jitsu, right? Like for me, I could literally just hold someone in my closed guard, even someone who's 2 belts higher than me. I could hold someone in my closed guard for like a minute, maybe 2 minutes. I'm not really getting a lactic capacity or a lactic power. I'm not getting that lactic system conditioning from holding someone in a position. But if I'm trying really hard to take their back from closed guard, or I'm trying to armbar them as best I can, whatever, right? Or I'm trying to pass someone's guard as best I can, that's going to be taxing that lactic system. So that's a high output, like a pretty high intensity output, right? Your lactic threshold, basically. That's holding that high intensity effort for like 30 to 60 seconds and all the way up to about 130 seconds to about 3 minutes long, basically. Wait, 130 seconds? A minute and 30 seconds and to about 3 minutes long, okay? So that's lactic capacity is like your ability to sustain that output for like 3 to 5 minute rounds. That's lactic capacity, your capacity to constantly exert that force over and over again. But lactic power is is how long you can hold that high output constantly, right? So imagine you're on a heavy bag or something and you're just going hard as hard as you can. You're not stopping. There's no rest. Or you're doing as many burpees as you can in like 1 minute, okay? That's lactic power, okay? But you have to understand there's going to be a point in time where that energy system burns out and you need at least a 20-second rest. That would be more lactic capacity, right? You can't just keep going all out for like 5 minutes straight. Like you can, but the energy systems, they can't sustain that. So anyway, how do you train that lactic system? Okay, lactic power, lactic capacity. Best way for combat athletes to train that lactic capacity and lactic power is going to be live positional rolling, live positional sparring, okay? So let's think about Muay Thai. That's going to be a lot of clinch work, like live clinching. Clinching and sweeps, okay? And then fighting in the pocket. So it's going to be a lot of lactic capacity, lactic power, okay? How about takedown, right? Positional takedown. So fighting for a takedown in general. Just fighting for a takedown. Live wrestling in general. But the best way to do this in a controlled environment where you're not going to like get injured is you start where one person has a single leg and the other person has to disengage or get out of that, right? The person who has a single leg, they're trying as hard as they can to take you down and to complete that takedown. That's going to work that lactic capacity conditioning threshold. There's no reason to be doing a shit ton of intervals and stuff when you have a lot of this in your training. You don't need to be doing, circuit training and crap like that if you're doing a lot of positional wrestling, right? Wrestling up against the cage, okay? That is an amazing conditioning effect that's directly going to be transferred into your sport practice. Jiu-Jitsu is very easy to get this type of conditioning effect. Pass, sweep, or submit from closed guard. Pass, sweep, or submit from full mount. You can have someone in side control, like someone who just holds a top position. The whole purpose of the person on bottom is to get on, sweep out and reverse, get out of the bottom and get into a better and get on top. Whereas a person on top, their whole thing needs to be to submit you. That is great. And then once a bottom person reverses or sweeps or the top person submits, you reset the round. The thing with jiu-jitsu rolling is you can hold a position forever or, you can do jiu-jitsu in a way where you're so efficient that you don't get conditioning from it, and that's good. That's what you need to do for competition, right? But for practice, for conditioning, and also to maximize like your ability to finish submissions or get out of bad positions and stuff, you need to do something where one person holds a position, one person has a back and tries to submit you as best possible, the other person tries to defend, and you just do that over and over again. You keep resetting in that same position. Because if you just keep starting from standing, like you can hold someone's back forever, or you can hold someone in a turtle position or something. You can hold someone in closed guard forever. You can hold someone in side control forever. You're not going to get a conditioning effect, and you're not even really progressing technique. I mean, you can if you're working pressure or something like that, right? But yeah, for the sake of conditioning and also the sake of just learning how to finish or learning how to defend or get out of bad positions, Live rolling is not that good for. It's better to do live positional rolling. That's how you get the most bang for your buck, and that's how you really advance your technique. You get past plateaus, and you really work that anaerobic conditioning. Live positional rolling. That is huge, okay? Same thing with wrestling. Now, as far as like striking is concerned, it's a lot harder to do without like concussions and stuff. Like you could do hard sparring with only punches to the body or kick sparring or something, with no punches to the face. I don't like that because then you develop bad habits. If all you're focusing on is striking someone in their body and blocking body shots, you're developing the hands down mentality that a lot of Taekwondo athletes have. And then they get wrecked because they haven't trained head movement or, whatever, parrying punches and stuff, which in MMA, the gloves are so small, you need more head movement and stuff like that. But, right, you can't just keep your guard up. You end up like Alistair Overeem and just get knocked out. Or Gokhan Saki, who I really love, who came from K1 and went to MMA and, couldn't just like shell up anymore. So anyway, what I like would be, so that's not a bad idea. Light punches to the face, okay, and then moderate to hard punches and kicks to the body. That's a good way to go about getting that anaerobic power conditioning as well as sports practice from sparring for striking. But really, if for striking, the best way to enhance your anaerobic power and anaerobic conditioning, that anaerobic system, that lactic capacity system, is really hard and intense interval training on the heavy bag, okay? Going all out for 30 seconds and then resting for 30 seconds, and go all out for 30 seconds and resting for 30 seconds. And it depends. You can change the intervals to work different energy systems. If you're working exclusively lactic power, you want to be doing like 30-second all out on the heavy bag, 1 minute rest. 30 seconds all out on the heavy bag, 1 minute rest. If you're trying to work lactic capacity, which is something I like to work on, that could be like 1 minute all out on the heavy bag and 45 seconds rest. And those are really hard intervals. For jiu-jitsu athletes and grappling, you could do sprints on the Concept 2 rower. Okay, so that rower endurance rowing, look up Concept 2. That's really good because you get kind of like that pulling endurance and grip training and stuff, as well as like that explosive hip bump type thing that was really important for all forms of grappling. But it's easier to just go and do more grappling to get your anaerobic conditioning, right? For striking, though, it's better to go hard on the heavy bag and do mitt work for that form of conditioning. But you have to do it in proper intervals at a proper intensity. Okay? So that is the way, especially in the off season. In the off season, you want a lot of good, high volume, high frequency training. You have no business going in there and going hard all the time in the off season. Okay, you need to be focusing on building a base of refined techniques, making all of your best techniques better, and then kind of addressing weak points too, especially if they're really alarming. You can't really fucking do that if you're always trying to win hard sparring rounds. You're trying to prevent yourself from losing or prevent yourself from getting knocked out. That's catastrophic. Very, very bad if you're always training hard. And you don't really get the best conditioning from that. You can't sustain that all the time without getting injured. As you get closer to your competition, you want more and more hard sparring, more and more specific fight simulation type sparring, a more volume, more frequency, and more intensity. You want a lot more competition rounds, competition sparring, etc. But you want to do it without getting injured or knocked out, because what good is having a well-conditioned, super technical fighter who's ready for competition and is made weight, but he's all injured, he broke his hand or something, and he's concussed, right? There's no point in going so hard that you're dying going into competition. None of that fucking conditioning matters. Like, if you're fucking broken, bro. So you got to be real careful about that. And also, the harder you go, the harder it is to recover. And the harder it is to recover from yesterday's training, the harder it is for me to give my 100% effort in today's training. So you have to remember, if you're always going hard, that fatigue builds up. It does not matter how hard your grind grit mentality is. It doesn't matter how much you think the body adapts. The fact is, okay, that fatigue accumulates. You need to search up fatigue management, okay, and the different types of fatigue by Renaissance periodization and juggernaut training systems, and learn about this. This is not just go for weight training and shit like that. This is a sports science principle. And you will see in your athletes, the longer you do hard training without light days, the worse their sleep is going to get, the worse their health is going to get. They'll get sick more often. They'll get more injured. They'll get burnt out and lethargic. And it's not fucking necessary. The harder it is to adapt to training, the harder it is to recover from training, the harder it is to adapt. And the harder it is to adapt, the less improvements you're going to make over long term. Technique goes down. Fitness adaptations, endurance goes down. Conditioning goes down. Your physical structure goes down. Your strength goes down. Your power goes down. Everything goes down if everything's always hard. Okay? Recovery is very important, and the closer you get to the professional leagues, the more and more you'll see athletes and coaches emphasize recovery over going hard all the time, okay? Because, anyway, and then, of course, American Kickboxing Academy and these other places are the exception, but most of them have very short careers. So, yeah, keep that in mind. So now, once we establish a baseline level of conditioning and technique from proper skill training, okay, now you can add strength training, okay? So again, you should get most of your interval cardio conditioning, fight cardio from your skills practice. I think we've established that. You can look this up. It's called the two-factor model of sports performance, okay? Starting Strength and Mark Ripito kind of made this king, but I don't recommend their way of strength training, but they have articles about that. You can read that, okay? From there, okay, things you do outside of conditioning, because remember, we don't want to waste time. These motherfuckers are already getting beat up in their practice, right? From their sparring and stuff at MMA practice. They don't need to go and turn their strength training into cardio sessions. It's a waste of time. You need to be improving your maximum force output, okay? You need to be raising your force capacity ceiling by doing heavy weight training in the 1 to 8 rep range. Barbells are king because we're focusing on progressively overloading, adding a little bit more weight every single week, okay? Because when you first start training with weights, if you've never trained with weights properly before and followed a proper program, it is very common for athletes, like I have a 155er, for example, came in with a 200-pound deadlift. And in a matter of 2 months, he's deadlifting 400 pounds. Okay? That is a huge difference. You walk in with a 200-pound deadlift at 155, you come out with a 400-pound deadlift in 2 months. Imagine how much easier it is for that guy to get out of full mount position when he's being mounted, because his hip strength and power has improved so much. We've all heard about like professional NFL football players who can bench press you out of side control. That is no fucking joke. And there's a lot of professional jiu-jitsu athletes who have come out making rant videos. There's this one guy, Andrew Wilth or something from like Daisy Fresh, who made a 40-minute video ranting about how strength and conditioning makes a huge fucking difference and people need to stop being delusional, okay? But I'll save you that rant, okay? If you're watching this, you should already know you need to be doing strength work, right? So, yeah, part of it is obviously it's easier for you to manhandle other people, basically. Or at least you can move them easier. You start to notice you can finish takedowns easier. You start to notice you can fight out of kimuras and get to and hip out and get into a better position easier. You start to notice it's harder for people to submit you. Harder for people to pass your guard, right? Like I can hold higher belts in my guard for a pretty long time. Like they have to try really hard just because I'm so strong and because I'd say my guard is all right, or my guard retention is okay. Mobility and flexibility plays a huge role in that too. Make no mistake. You need to be stretching every day and getting fight-specific mobility as well. So your ability to produce more force, okay? The force-velocity continuum, okay? Power is just force produced quickly and explosively. Power is just strength expressed explosively. Speed is just force produced really, really quickly, okay? Endurance is just strength and force produced over a long duration of time. It's just force produced over a long duration of time, okay? When you train for maximum strength in the 1 to 8 rep range, you are raising your ceiling for force capacity. When you do strength training and you raise that ceiling, your capacity for power, for speed, for endurance goes up. Okay? Your plateaus, where you normally plateau at, and you just blame it on genetics. Like, oh, I've already, like, I can run a mile in 5 minutes, and that's like the maximum. I've been grinding at that forever. When you improve your fucking strength, your speed goes up. And when your speed goes up, your 1 mile time will also improve. Your ability to sustain longer efforts improves. You'd be surprised at how much easier it is. Because now moving around a 200-pound person, once you add 100 pounds to all of your lifts, that 200-pound blue belt on top of you is a lot more submaximal now, because your maximal force has improved. Things that used to be maximal become submaximal, right? Moving a 200-pound man on top, or whatever, grappling with a 200-pound man in general, okay? It becomes a lot easier. It requires less effort the stronger you get, okay? The less effort it takes to grapple with somebody, the more energy you spare, the more efficient you become, okay? And there's a lot of positions that strength makes a huge difference, in particular when you're on bottom position in grappling, okay? In particular when you're fighting for clinch position, when you're wrestling up against the cage. When you're wrestling up against the cage, okay, for me, I hardly ever do that because I'm mostly a competitive jiu-jitsu player right now. But when I do, I don't know much about like fucking grappling against a cage, but I can hold people up against there, even people who are the same weight class, and they're just not as strong as me. They think a 300-pound deadlift is impressive, right? I can hold them there for a long freaking time because strength matters. So anyway, let's talk about let's get out of this rant, right? Your bones adapt, your joints adapt, okay? You become less injury prone the stronger you get. Louis Simmons, rest in peace, quoted, "Weak things break." Okay? Being strong is never a weakness. And I always see the people who are against strength training, or who don't do like heavy barbell work, they do kettlebells and stuff. They're always injured. Why do you think that is? Because they have weak connective tissue. Their connective tissue, their body is not adapted to lifting 400-pound barbells on a regular basis. So that is a huge adaptation to make your joints stronger, to make your bones stronger. That's how you prevent injury. Not doing a bunch of kettlebell, Bosu ball band shit, okay? Clams with a fucking resistance band. That's cool and all, but make no mistake, that is not going to give you the biggest bang for your buck at preventing injury, okay? Right? Bosu ball, stable knees, buy my fucking DVD. You need to be able to do a single leg lunge on a freaking yoga ball. That's how you prevent injury. No, it's not. Making your body able to resist a 400-pound barbell coming crashing down onto it, that's how you build strong fucking connective tissues and prevent injury, okay? All right, so what are the modalities to do this? So there's a lot of ways to do it, and I don't want to give away my secrets, okay? But you need to be lifting around 75%, 75 to 90% of your 1 rep max, doing sets of 1 to 8, doing multiple straight sets 2 to 3 times a week, okay? And you want to have your strength training programmed on before your hardest MMA or sport session, okay? Because the training you do today creates damage that you will feel tomorrow. That's important. So if I do all my heavy squats today and my hard MMA practice today, okay, I'm not going to feel that shit today. I might be tired, but I'm not going to be sore and fucked up. Tomorrow morning, I will, make no mistake, my body will be fucked. I will be sore. I will be hurting tomorrow. So imagine trying to do hard MMA practice today and then trying to do my hard strength training tomorrow. That will not work, okay? But you have a lot of people who think that work. If that works for you, cool, okay? But training with MMA athletes who actually have hard practices, okay? And their coaches have them doing circuits and stuff and like lunges and burpees and shit for like competition rounds, which is insane. Of course they're going to be sore the next day. These fighters need to be doing their shit the same day, right? Anyway, look up Chad Wesley Smith or Juggernaut Training Systems. They have videos on how to structure Jiu-Jitsu training, at least around that. The same thing goes for all combat sports and whatnot in general. So your hard strength days need to be done before your hard Jiu-Jitsu days, okay? That or your hard training MMA days. Anyway, 3x5, you could do a starting strength program if you don't have a coach. I like auto-regulation for fighters. It's going to be hard for fighters to like come in and add 5 pounds every single session, like a lot of these basic beginner programs do. But if you can do a basic beginner program, you can add 200 pounds to your deadlift and squat in like 2 months, and 100 pounds to your bench press and overhead press in like 2 months if you do these programs. It's really funny how many martial arts people think that like a 200-pound bench is like impressive, or like a 155-pounder who comes in and like deadlifts 300. That shit is not impressive. That is only impressive to people who don't train. If you train properly and you fight at 155 pounds, you walk around at 170, you need to be like deadlifting 400 in the first 6 months at least of your training. Otherwise, that's a sign that your strength and conditioning coach doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Anyway, or whatever. I mean, combat sports is physically demanding, but yeah, twice a week, squat, bench, deadlift, overhead press, rows, and pull-ups and lat pull-downs, right? Pulling strength is very important for combat athletes. Think about getting someone in a clinch, snap downs. Think about underhooks. Think about underhook smash passing. Think about, if you're doing gi jiu-jitsu, or even no-gi. Having a really strong close guard is reliant on that pulling strength, whatever grips you're doing, monkey grip and stuff like that. Doing different types of pull-ups, lat pull-downs, pin lay rows, stuff like that, bent over rows. I like dumbbells, but eventually you're going to be maxing out the dumbbell stack at your gym, doing 100-pound dumbbells or sets of 20 like me. So you're going to need to do barbell rows because you're able to keep stacking on more and more plates over time. It's funny like how many people think that they can just do dumbbells all the time and that's effective strength and conditioning. Usually it's because they don't realize how strong that they can become over time. And they start to realize, holy shit, I'm like maxing out my dumbbell stack and I've only been training 2 months. Like I'm going to need to keep, like there's not enough dumbbells, dumbbells can only go so high. You need barbells, right? Barbell training. So progressive overload, keep adding weight. And within the first 2 months, you should be able to add 100, 200 pounds of most of your main lifts if you're training right. Progressive overload, right? Basically a basic powerlifting program, but the difference between strength training for combat sports and powerlifting is that powerlifting modifies the form of their lifts to maximize leverages. For example, you'll see people who do bench presses with really, really wide arms and a huge arch on the bench press. And if you notice, the range of motion between the bar and the chest is like an inch. That's because powerlifting doesn't care about overall strength and musculature through a full range of motion. So make no mistake, we're using powerlifting movements and modalities, but we're training for full body strength and power. And our form is not going to look like a powerlifter's. You're doing a bench press with a slight arch, but full range of motion, pausing on the chest when we're doing strength training here for combat athletes. We have an arch mostly for safety and stability, but not a powerlifting arch, right? And we want to the closer your grip is on bench press, the better it's going to be for stiff arms, for defending Kimuras, for even like hipping out of bad positions on the bottom. But standing barbell overhead press is number one for building strength and power for MMA and combat sports. Bench press is cool, but I think standing barbell overhead presses are number one. So we do a lot of that here with my athletes, and I think that it should be big emphasis, because with a standing barbell overhead press, you're lifting the max amount of weight you can for sets of 5 or 8 or whatever. Standing, pushing through the feet, just like takedowns, just like sweeps, just like every single movement you're going to be doing. You're generating force from your feet all the way up through your arms and shoulders and engaging the quads and the glutes. The feet are being engaged. So standing barbell overhead press, I think, is magic. And I think a lot of people don't see how it connects. I do think it transfers into punching power when you start to do jerks and push presses and explosive push-ups. But yeah, standing barbell overhead press, number one strength movement that you can do for combat athletes, okay? And bench press is cool. I like floor presses a little bit more with kind of like a glute bridge, but bench press is cool too, just for that development of overall upper body strength. Super key. Rows, pull-ups, for pulling strength, breaking someone's posture down, clinching, takedowns, you name it. Pulling strength is number one. Heavy weighted pull-ups are key. Keep adding dumbbells, get a harness, add weight plates. Barbell squats, these kind of just are overall body strengthener. Wrestling up against a cage, holding everything from top position using leverage. Squats are going to improve your ability to pass guard, passing guard. Fucking squats really, really help with using your legs to kind of break someone's hooks from half guard. Those are all things squats can develop. A really strong, nasty core and ability to finish takedowns comes from barbell squats. Front squats, I think, have and Zercher squats have a huge transfer, but in the off season we do a lot of high bar back squats, pause squats, squats for reps, max effort squats, cluster sets. It's a good way of getting conditioning, power, and strength all in the same kind of like modality. I think you should develop a baseline level of strength in the off season. We want long rest periods, 2 to 5 minutes in between sets of 1 to 8 reps. Pretty freaking heavy, as close as you can to like. But you use like 1 rep in the tank. Leave 1 to 2 reps in the tank per set. When you first start, it's important to know how heavy you can go, because most athletes don't know what 2 reps in tank means, because they don't know what failure feels like. Doing AMRAP sets, following a program like the Grayskull LP or something is a good way to kind of like get auto-regulation, but then also progressive overload and in the same kind of program. So anyway, strength and conditioning for combat sports, you need a foundation of conditioning from your sports practice, and you need strength. And this is kind of the thing. When you have a model like this, okay, you do your fucking strength work on Monday morning. Then you go into the gym and do wrestling practice later that day. when you do your wrestling practice, you are training your body to use that strength that you developed in the weight room and adapt that into sport-specific power, speed, and endurance, okay? So if you just do weight training all the time and then you just do like drilling and stuff, you're not really going to get that power adaptation or that speed adaptation that's specific to wrestling, jiu-jitsu, or striking, right? But let's say you're doing strength training and then you do your sports practice. Every time you do sports practice, you don't know this, but your body is training itself to use that strength you developed in the weight room and adapt it to whatever it is you do in practice. When you intend to explode for a takedown or to finish a sweep or to fucking go for an explosive flurry during like a jab cross roundhouse kick or something, right? Jab cross head kick. Whatever it is, when you do something powerful or explosive in practice, your nervous system is trying to adapt to be more efficient at that over time. And so your sport practice is actually training power. It's actually training speed. It's actually training endurance. And all of that strength work you're doing is improving your body's ability to produce more force during practice. That strength training you're doing is telling your nervous system, it's telling your body that it needs to get stronger, it needs to get more powerful, it needs to get more explosive. It is boosting your ability to produce more force from strength training, right? And then you go to practice and your body is better. You've got a little bit more skill points in all attributes. And then you go to skill practice and that's application. That is literally, it's not a matter of squats and deadlifts just making you stronger. They're producing higher ceilings for all other attributes. And when you go into your sports practice, that is being trained and adapted to as well. That power. You're getting power training from your wrestling. Speed training from your guard passing drills. Endurance from your hard rounds. From your pass or sweep live rolls, whatever it is. Keep that in mind when you do strength and conditioning, when you're doing weight training, when you're thinking about this. Strength training is building that attribute of force production. Your sport practice is building that adaptation, that attribute of power, of speed, of endurance. Okay? It is taking that strength from the weight room and converting it into power. Taking that strength from the weight room and converting it into speed, into efficiency. Okay? Your ability to grind out Kimuras, to fucking crank out arm bars. Someone who can fucking deadlift 600 pounds, who has your fucking arm and is cranking on it and you're trying to defend, good luck using technique to defend that arm bar against a strong deadlifter, okay, who has a similar belt level, right? Because if you're a black belt, you should be able to hitchhike her out, probably, even though they're trying to crank it. But that's scary, man. Having a strong dude who is at a similar belt level than you, but he's that much stronger, okay? And remember, it doesn't take much. If you haven't trained with barbells yet, just once a week even of a proper progressive overload program where you're going pretty hard, 2 months you should be able to add 200 pounds to your squat and deadlift, okay? People who are like, yeah, strength, man, I'd rather be rolling. Bro, you really don't have 1 hour a week to just go ham on a strength program? And you'll get all these crazy, like, fucking improvements, right? Like, people talk about, oh, steroids, blah, blah, blah. I mean, one of the main benefits of steroids is improved force capacity production. Improved neural drive. You know what else gives you improved neural drive? Fucking strength training, man. Literally, my athletes, once they do, after 2 months on my strength program, it's a 9-day difference. They're a whole nother athlete. They're like, whoa, what the hell? They're suddenly able to take on dudes who are in 3 weight classes higher than them that they weren't able to hang with before just because they're stronger. It closes that fucking gap, right? If you're 155 pounds and you're not strong, imagine being 155 pounds and being stronger than everyone else in your competition. It fucking matters, okay? But if you're doing intervals in the gym, you're doing bodybuilding training, you're doing kettlebells and fucking super high rep cable shit or resistance bands, kettlebell circuits, like, yeah, that's cool for your lactic power, lactic capacity, maybe your power endurance. But you'd be better off doing power clean cluster sets. I teach all of my athletes some form of Olympic lift, okay? Whether it's power cleans usually, that's like the first one. Some of them we have doing snatch variations. Some of them snatch high pulls. Power production is very important, right? You do cluster sets with Olympic lifts, and you get a power adaptation. You get a power endurance adaptation. I don't have them doing a bunch of kettlebell circuits and crap like that because that's not the biggest bang for their buck. They'd be better off just doing more fucking grappling, man. That's my opinion. It's a pretty similar energy system. Doesn't make sense. You get better, stronger connective tissue, stronger bones from strength training. But you don't get that from light kettlebells done in circuits. So it's like, what's going to happen when they do strength training? They get so much better use of their 30 to 60 minutes twice a week from strength training with barbells than they do, fucking lightweight, fucking high rep type of shit. So, and that can boost your conditioning and stuff, but, So anyway, become fucking strong, right? Your ability to finish takedowns, your ability to fucking submit people, your ability to defend takedowns, your ability to defend positions, your ability to not get freaking knee problems, get injured, get tweaked, right? Your ability to produce more force, your ability to be stronger, just faster, have more power. All of that stuff, your ability to be more efficient in certain positions, okay? It is so much easier to wrestle against someone of the same weight when you double your strength. Your conditioning improves, your endurance improves just because you're stronger. Sweeping someone doesn't take as much effort anymore. No matter how efficient you think you are, no matter how efficient your leverages are, right? You're using leverage and this and that, sweeping them off balance. Still, do that over and over again throughout a round. It will take its toll on you. It is so much better when you're stronger. You have so much better conditioning when you're fucking strong. Directly pours into your conditioning. It is a lot easier to grapple with a 200-pound man for 5 minutes when you're double their strength. So, and as far as strength standards are concerned, I'm not the best with math, but I'm going to give some ballpark estimates. For deadlift, I would say 2.5 times body weight. For squat, I would say 2 times body weight. For overhead press, I would say 1.25 pounds body weight. For me, I've been able to strict barbell overhead press my body weight for years. So, a lot of people, they undershoot overhead press, but that's the most important lift. For bench press, I would say 1.75 times body weight, maybe, right? Those are numbers you should be kind of shooting for, and I'm talking for 1 rep maxes, but preferably for 5 rep maxes. That would be really good. A lot of people, they're surprised if they can deadlift 2 times their body weight, and that's just sad. Or if they could squat their own body weight, that's, again, sad. So anyway, let's end it here. Strength is never a weakness. Weak things break. That's quoting Mark Bell and Louis Simmons, rest in peace. If you have any more questions, because that's just the very basics. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. Very, very complicated topic. Let me know, and I'll talk to you all next time.